Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is Ukraine War News Update for the 5th of November 2023, and goodness me, isn't it late? Haven't I been a bad boy today? It's hours and hours late. I do apologise. So, as I said, I had to take my son Finn up to a rugby match that was an hour north of here. Did that, match played, went in the clubhouse, the kids had the food, came an hour back, got in the front door. Finn says, "Oh, I've left my boots up at the clubhouse." I was like, that's an hour away. Anyway, he's got school rugby training tomorrow, a school rugby tournament all day Tuesday. He's got trials for the RFU on Thursday, and he's got club training on Wednesday. So he's got 4 nights of rugby. So basically, I got in the car, drove an hour back to get his boots, and then came an hour back. So I've been in the car for 4 hours today, and I don't normally say things like this, but sometimes I just hate children. Obviously I don't. Or do I? No, I don't. I'm so sorry that I'm late, but I have managed to listen to a good couple of hours of an audio book in the car, so I suppose that's something. Right, let's get on with it. So, Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before, all the usual caveats apply. All those caveats can be found in the description to this video below this video. Right, let's go and look at what they say. And it does amaze me that the personnel losses on a daily basis remain consistently high at the moment. 990 is back up, and I don't know what that is saying, because this is a Sunday. You're thinking, oh, do we sometimes have quiet days on a Sunday and a Monday? Yes. So this is trending back up towards 1,000. What's the narrative? What's the story? Are things still tough in Avdiivka? Almost certainly. Are they tough elsewhere? Quite possibly. Upticks here and there. Goodness me, don't know. Anyway, 8 tanks as well, which is not a huge amount. That is down from previously, and as is the armoured personnel vehicles and artillery systems, 14 and 12. So it's interesting that the personnel is high, but the other categories of mechanised equipment are low or lower. I mean, they're not crazy low. To lose 14 armoured personnel vehicles and 8 tanks in the day is still bad, right? 12 artillery systems is on the lower end of the ranges that we have, or the range that we are used to seeing. 6 multiple launch rocket systems is high. And we do see Grads and another MLRS being taken out on a daily basis at quite high numbers, high being sort of 2, 3, 4 bits of video footage coming out every day. So that is a figure that I believe it is. I'm seeing that kind of footage daily. 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems. I'm just going to show you a video concerning 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, 3 cruise missiles, and then 14 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 9 pieces of special equipment. And that 9 pieces of special equipment is pretty significant, because I think that is largely electronic warfare and ISR equipment, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. I was talking over this last week. I've been talking a lot about. I just think Ukraine should be hitting everything, just getting as much distance munitions and taking out air defense, and things like electronic warfare. That we talked about that being enemy number 1 as far as some people are concerned. Zaluzhny was talking about electronic warfare as being a really important area that needs a lot of focus, a lot of counter electronic warfare technology needs to be developed. But in the absence of that being developed, you just got to blow the stuff up. So I think 9 pieces of special equipment and 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems is important. Right, let's go and look at the stats from Andrew Perpetua. He is the mapper. He adds up these figures on a daily basis. Let's see what he has to say. And actually, it's a ratio that's probably 2 to 1, which is somewhat closer to parity that we've seen. There have been a couple of days recently where there's been parity, but broadly speaking, the Russians have lost a phenomenal amount of equipment compared to the Ukrainians. Let's see what the Ukrainians have lost first. Well, here we see some Max Pros, M113. So that is your troop carriers, your armored personnel carriers and whatnot that you might associate with activity on the front lines, and then civilian trucks and a T-64 tank. Interestingly, look at what has taken out most things again, FPV drone. Then we do have some cluster munitions and some shelling, but essentially FPV drones are such a nuisance, right? Then we look at the Russian losses, air defense systems, Strela 10, not the 2 I'm going to talk to you about, interestingly. So it's another air defense system lost. then some artillery, some old D-20s there, but a few other bits and pieces as well, and a couple of tanks, a few IFVs and APCs and civilian vehicles as well. So a bit of a range there for the Russians. Now, just when talking stats, I'm going to pop into Global War Monitor here. It says Russian and Ukrainian visually confirmed losses in Avdiivka Oblast since the start of the Russian offensive. So that is going to be somewhere around October the 10th, although people variously say that it started previously to that in kind of shaping or whatnot. Here we have 209 verified losses, loss or damage, destroyed or damaged vehicles. And we have for the Ukrainians in the same time period, far fewer, of course, total of 14 there, 14 plus 6, 209 plus 52. So there are the change since the last update shown in brackets. So that's an extra 52 from when they last checked. That could be due to more equipment being destroyed, as well as more footage of the earlier equipment coming to the fore. Anyway, just huge losses, as we know from the Russians. Right, let's talk about some types of losses that we're seeing at the moment. And I'm pointing these out because they are so important. And it's vital that Ukraine, I think, concentrate on air defenses still, air defense and electronic warfare and ISR equipment, because that will degrade the capability of the Russians to operate in the air themselves, and also allow the Ukrainians to get closer to the front lines with their own aircraft. So here we have Ukrainian forces destroy state-of-the-art Russian weapon dubbed Impenetrable Drone Dome. The Russian electronic warfare system Pol 21 was developed in 2016. According to Russian sources, its effective range is 60 kilometers. Wow. So that is incredibly useful that the Ukrainians have taken out that. You can go and check out the whole of this article. It's not particularly long. In all of the stuff from this video is listed in, or at least these first two sections, in the description below there. So that is another piece of kit destroyed by the Ukrainians. Now here we've got a video that shows the destruction of a Pantsir S1 and then Tunguska. I can't show you that for all the normal reasons of demonetization and whatnot, but just to let you know that the Pantsir is a relatively new piece of kit. It came into service in 2012 and up till now. They have, let's have a look if we can see the kind of range. No, we can't here. These are the vehicles that we saw, I think, placed on the roofs in Moscow when they were getting all afraid of consistent attacks by drones. So they placed a bunch of these. So we have surface-to-air missile with an increased ceiling from 15 to 18 kilometers for the Pantsir S1. So 15, these are medium-range air defense systems, 15 to 18 kilometers there. Engagement range 20 to 30 kilometers, so on and so forth. So that's the kind of ranges with some of these variants, and they'll be improved. Yeah, so the Pantsir M or EM here, maximum firing range of the later of up to 100 kilometers then, but as with all of these systems, there are so many variants, and you don't necessarily know which variant was taken out. Well, actually that's a S1, so that is the much earlier one, the first and most numerously produced variant. So that's going to be your short to medium range air defense system. The Tunguska it looks like a bit like that, or almost exactly like that, and it has both guns and missiles on board, and that's your short range. So here we have 15 meters to 6,000 meters for ground targets, and 15 meters to 10,000, so that's 10 kilometers or 6 kilometers, whether it's ground or air. That's for the missiles. And then for the rounds, for the those kind of autocannons, you've got 5,000 rounds a minute at 3,000 or 3,000 meter range in the air, or if it's along the ground where gravity isn't taking so much effect, then that's 4,000 meters. So that's the situation with those two bits of kit if you don't know what they are. And there's a video of two of them, or one of each, getting blown up. And again, it's about degrading these key categories. And then we have some footage of an S-300 launcher. As Trentelenko says, "Oh my goodness, the Ukrainians nailed a moving S-300 launcher with a Tochka U. This would represent a massive warhead tech shift if it's true. As in, is that what the 700-kilometer range Grom 2 is going to be chucking?" So this idea that they are developing new missile capabilities that they keep hinting at the Ukrainians. If this was a moving S-300 and it was hit by one of the Ukrainian missiles, then that could be really significant. The Russians published a video of a Russian S-300 air defense system destroyed by a strike of the armed forces of Ukraine during movement to the area of temporarily occupied Berdyansk. Someone says it's an old loss from last year, but we shall see. There are various claims about that. The armed forces of Ukraine confirmed an attack with an Iskander-M missile of personnel of the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade, as a result of which servicemen were killed during a decoration ceremony. So we're going to talk about this in some depth in the next segment, but just to say that the Ukrainians have lost some troops there, and that's added, I think they're saying about 28 troops died in that single strike. So that is hugely significant for the Ukrainians, and it's caused a bit of a ruckus, as you can imagine. And this is just another strike of electronic warfare equipment. So EW hardened drones are expensive, some people say. Well, here we have a drone that one might assume is hardened to electronic warfare, because you've got an electronic warfare system on top of that roof. And it is destroyed by drone-dropped munitions. In fact, several are dropped. I think 3 in the end are dropped on this to eventually destroy it. Anyway, there you go. That is a system that takes a bit of a hit there, or 3. And that is taken out. So this is the importance of having drones that can withstand electronic warfare, if indeed that's what is going on there. You're not quite sure. But it's that arms race of capability of measure, countermeasure, measure, countermeasure, measure, countermeasure, and fighting for one's weapons to remain effective against countermeasures. Right, moving on to distance strikes and whatnot. This is what I did my breaking news video on this morning. So regarding the missile attack on Kerch, information has appeared that the small missile ship Askold received at least 3 hits. It's a Caliber cruise missile carrier. It has never been in service yet. It was, I think, finished in 2021, but it's been undergoing, I don't know, upgrades or work on it. So still in 2023, almost 2024. It's not a dry dock, it was moored. And in fact, the first satellite images have come out now to suggest that it has received damage. You can see fire there, but also blackened area by the superstructure. That's the building part on top of the hull there, and possibly a blackened area to the back as well. So first satellite image available showing the Russian missile corvette Askold at berth in the Kerch Zeliv shipyard. You can see fire burning on the dock and a large scorched area, which appears to include part of the ship's superstructure and port midship. And people are doing analyses on that at the moment. So that's a real loss for the Russians. That's the newest ship, essentially, that the Russians have lost as well. The Black Sea Fleet is being somewhat degraded by a navy that doesn't really exist, by the Ukrainians. Obviously, it's by drones and missiles, but there you go. Right, now, last night there was a lot of activity in a lot of places. Don't really know the details of these, but the Ukrainians have been very busy in striking. Russians too, it has to be said. So here we have Rostov on Don, which, just to remind you, oh no, great. Bit of a reset of the old map there, but it's the area to the east of the Kerch Bridge is Rostov-on-Don. You've got Taganrog, and then you've got Rostov. Here as well, there have been explosions reported at Skadovsk. In fact, these are quite significant explosions. That's in the Kherson area. In occupied Skadovsk, in the Kherson region, something has exploded and is burning, says P-Star 11. So there was some kind of fairly sizable hit there. Explosion has been heard, but going back to Rostov, sorry, it's a bit out of order this, 18 kilometers from Rostov. So that must have been something fairly serious, says that source. So just to let you know where that is, Rostov is just down here. So you've got the Kerch Bridge there. And you've got Rostov. Oh no, you've got up in the. It's not east of the Kerch, sorry. It's kind of northeast. It's east of Mariupol and the Donetsk region of Ukraine. You've got Taganrog, and then you've got Rostov on Don. So somewhere around here, there were some big old explosions last night, and that's could well be significant or not. It could be air defense systems that are just working very well. It's hard to know when the details are thin on the ground. Right, to continue, we have this. Now, I'm going to come to more Ukrainian hits in a minute that have happened today, but this is what happened yesterday, in Ukraine, and this has caused a lot of consternation. So 28 Ukrainian military were killed, 53 wounded in a Russian strike on the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade. In the Zaporizhia region, Rada MP Oleksiy Kucherenko has said the strike against the Ukrainian soldiers was carried out on November the 3rd, so that's 2 days ago now, at an award ceremony dedicated to the Day of Artillerymen in Ukraine. So you've got, obviously, people who've received awards. These are going to be decent troops that have done a good job and then being taken out. The issue being, well, one of the issues being that this happened really close to the front line. The AFU soldiers blame the incident on a particularly clever officer who had thought of organising a solemn awarding ceremony in a frontline village where the military became an easy target. Russian media published a video of an alleged strike on the Ukrainian military. A Russian drone was circling over the place where the awarding of soldiers was to take place. Soon an Iskander missile hit there. A 3-day mourning has been declared in the region. You know, yeah, there is a time and a place to do these things, but maybe in a bunker where it's safe. Not getting people together in the open in a frontline town where you've got drones. You know drones are operating, so people are rightfully angry about this, and it's a huge loss of life that is ostensibly completely avoidable. So as Tim White says, there's growing anger following that strike in the open. Enemy drone tracked them all the time during the presentation. Not good. So the Defense Ministry is to investigate, and in fact there is a criminal investigation, I think, has been announced today. I don't know how that works. To investigate an award to investigate the award ceremony incident. Defense Minister Rustem Umarov called on the Ministry of Defense to conduct a full investigation into the award ceremony held at the front lines. So as you can see there, people saying absolute madness. Dozens of Ukrainian officers killed. Media reports suggest that the Ukrainian soldiers at Frontline Village in Zaporizhia were assembled for the award ceremony, and then a ballistic missile hit them. Andrew Perpetua said, "I'm writing this in the interest of those who have not followed this story today. Yesterday, there was a rocket strike reported in Zarychne, which is near Komishyavka, which is southeast of Zaporizhia. I marked it on my map yesterday. It is approximately 18 kilometers from the front line. Yesterday, this is what I saw reported. So that he cruises the news reports, the local news reports that are really good insight into what goes on locally, both in areas controlled by the Ukrainians and areas controlled by the Russians. He said this morning, Ukraine reported an Iskander-M missile in Zaporizhia district. Last night, he says, I saw a comment about a tragedy in Ukraine. Reading this, I felt it was clearly hitting at personal loss, but I wasn't sure what it could mean. Maybe a command post. And then he started seeing, this is kind of how people find out about stuff like this, how someone who's surveying all the different sources finds out about things like this in a gradual basis. Then we started seeing images of dead soldiers lying in the street, which are attributed to 128th Brigade. Then rumours started coming out that they were handing out awards to soldiers for various successes and accomplishment. I'm not going to post the images. And then tonight, Ukraine officially recognised the losses of the 128th. So those are the facts. Now for the opinion. What the F? Like, why would you give out awards this close to the front line? I cannot wrap my head around this. It just makes absolutely no goddamn sense. And talks about how the video is absolutely horrible. As someone says, it's terrible. You can't unsee it. Got to know about it yesterday and still can't recover. So these are terrible images coming out about that. And it's not cool. I mean, these things happen. Yes, they do. But it's when they're so obviously avoidable. Like having an awards ceremony in the middle of a street, in the middle of a town, on the front line, 18k from the front line when you've got drones all over the shop. Just don't do it. As well as that, and this is so I said yesterday, I think in my live, that I was wrong. I walked back that I was wrong. Like 2 days ago, along the Dnipro River, there was a day where there was only 12 guided glide bombs that hit the settlements along the Dnipro. And I said that's a really quiet day. That can only really mean that they're either stockpiling those weapons or they're running short of them. And someone immediately pointed out that, the weather was bad. So I came out straight away and said, no, I was wrong. The weather was bad. That's why there was a down tick. And you'll see an uptick tomorrow. Lo and behold, massive uptick again today. Being yesterday's tomorrow. Russian airstrikes unleash over 50 air bombs on Kherson Oblast in a single day. As a result of the strikes, 2 people were killed, 6 were wounded. School was destroyed. Just like, this is all terrible stuff. These bombs are a real challenge to the Ukrainians, and they need to be able to do something about it, which then goes back to why I'm so adamant that they just got to take out air defense systems so you can operate and electronic warfare systems and whatnot, so you can operate your own air force closer to the front line, and so you can somehow push the opposition air forces back as well. I mean, hopefully, move in some longer ranged air defense munitions of your own. Unconfirmed. So going back to now, Ukrainian stuff from today. So that was all kind of broadly yesterday stuff. There were unconfirmed reports of explosions in Russia's border region of Belgorod. It could have been air defense. No word from the authorities yet. In fact, there's quite a lot of claims of a bunch of stuff going on. Oh no, it's not in that one. It's, I think, So there's also Simferopol Airport in Crimea. There are big clouds of smoke coming out from there. And those clouds don't look particularly healthy. Look like some chemicals have been hit or something. And then similarly in Jankoy, which is a military hub and a logistics hub to the north of Crimea as well. So as someone says, fuming nitric acid propellant could well be that represented by the yellowish orangey color to that smoke. So Jankoy and Simferopol being hit today. And Russia says a Ukraine plot to blow up fuel wagons on a railway in Crimea failed. The occupiers say 6 drones with bombs landed on the tracks in Jankoy, primed to detonate when a fuel train passed over, but they didn't explode. Russia doesn't say how the drones bypassed the air defense. We'll come to talk about that in the next video. We've talked about that. There's just some more bits and pieces further down. So Russia has likely attacked one of the ports used by civilian craft in Ukraine's grain corridor. Locals report the picture was taken in Chornomorsk, and there is some other footage now coming out from Chornomorsk. Officials in Odessa region said air defense was working. There was an air raid warning at the time, but that has been hit. Berdyansk, 2 explosions in the last half hour. Russia claims its recent hits on airports in Mirorod and Dnipro were successful. So Russia's claims of striking, and that was that 2 nights ago, 1 night ago? 2 nights ago, sorry. MOD says the warehouse of aviation weapons was destroyed in the latter, while in Poltava region, Ukrainian aircraft were destroyed in parking lots. It's unverified, though explosions did happen. So the Ukrainians might have had another bad day at the office in terms of losing aircraft at airfields. It has happened before, and it could have happened again in the last couple of nights. Russia says its air defense is down aircraft type drones in the Bryansk region, and then also interestingly occupied Berdyansk. So Berdyansk again, just west of Mariupol this afternoon. Some blasts were heard in Berdyansk a while ago, and now another sound similar to an explosion rings out across the coastal city. So there are places being hit on both sides routinely throughout the last 24 hours plus, as there always are, but there seems to be been a bit of an uptick. It kind of goes back to what I was saying. Hey, the Ukrainians have to throw everything they can at Russian targets. And then back to the Chornomorsk one that I was talking to you about. No, that's what I already read through, but there is other footage out of that, as I said to you previously. Right. It's pretty active. I hope I've covered most things. I know it's a bit chaotic. I'm a bit more sort of rushed and less organised than I would be because of all the stuff I talked about earlier. So Onto other bits and pieces. Zelensky replaces the top commander at the defense minister's request. So this is something I mentioned very quickly yesterday, but Viktor Korenko, who is in charge of special operations forces, so the SOF, your special forces, he's been replaced. There are several different rumors about why that might be, but it has caused some confusion because he didn't find out directly from the defense minister or from his immediate bosses, whoever. He found out on social media. There's a bit of a breakdown in communication there. So anyway, that has happened. UK intelligence, that blue sheet that comes out every day, electronic sheet of UK intelligence update, has stated that there are gloomy conditions and they plague the Russian soldiers in Ukraine's front line. Russian soldiers say that the risk of fire alerting the Ukrainian forces means that they can't even boil a mug of tea. They highlighted living and eating monotonous food in a pervasive mud. So the morale for the Russians is not high. That's what is to be expected. There were very high losses for the Russians over the winter period last year. One can expect that again with people who might not be well protected from the elements. This is why we keep seeing like the German aid package recently and other aid packages. Canadian have given loads of winter gear, and I think the Finnish as well, that used to using that. There are lots of winter gear packages coming over from allied nations, and that's really important because these guys had to be looked after as much as possible, and the Russians are obviously struggling there. Now, bit of Russian propaganda here. This is a Russian propaganda singer. This is what Russians cheer to, and you've got a big old crowd here. This is a song that I showed you. Look at all the iconography going on as well. Very important. This is a song that I showed you Russians dancing to, who were in Georgia, dancing on tables and whatnot in Georgia. It's that song. Anyway, it's just interesting that, this big concert in Moscow where you got lots of people cheering, and the crescendo of the song saying "I'm Russian" is him pressing the red button, and then fireworks go off. So that's like everyone seeming to shout about how cool a nuclear holocaust would be. What are you thinking? Gee whiz. Trentelenko, the Ukrainians still have Bayraktar TB2s operating in the sky. So there's been this idea recently that Bayraktars are a lot less useful than they were at the beginning of the war. There's countermeasures. Again, that countermeasure ladder that we were talking about earlier. The Bayraktars are now more vulnerable than they were previously. They're big old drones, right? And if you can acquire them as a target quite easily, then you can take them out the skies possibly. So they were used as more offensive drones at the beginning of the war, and now they're being used much more behind the lines and being used to do a lot of reconnaissance as opposed to firing off missiles. But they are still being used, so much for the idea that TB2s are useless with lots of VKS, so that's Russian Air Force long-range surface-to-air missiles present. A digital camera that can see 100 kilometers on a drone is always useful. So you can still use these a long way back from the front lines with very good, just get better cameras on them, and that's all right. Now, this talks to the idea that Putin, there are body doubles of Putin, and it's like he admits it himself. So Anton Gerashchenko posts this video. "Are you Putin?" says a kid to Putin. And Putin says, "For now I am." Putin's double doesn't hide it anymore, says Gerashchenko. Well, more interestingly, for me at any rate, is that Putin is so close to all these people, very close, puts his face very close to that guy. And this appears to be the... So, yeah, are you Putin? Yeah, for now I am. He could just be joking. He's obviously joking with a kid, so I don't think it's him saying that. But as I say, for me, it's the fact that he's so close to those people. And it's like you have one Putin that won't get near people, not in meetings, not anywhere. And then you have another Putin that's going into crowds and hugging and kissing people, where we know that he wouldn't allow people to get close to him in COVID, and they had to be sprayed and quarantined for like weeks before they could even interact with him. So there you go. quote, Ukraine is considering changing its war strategy with Russia. The military is coming up with different plans, different operations in order to move forward faster and deliver unexpected blows, Zelensky has told NBC News. And in fact, we're going to dip into a great quote from Zelensky, I think, on that news piece. This is important. Now, mark my words, this is going to be all about missiles and drones. I've been talking about eking out advantages, and at the moment, I think, although Ukraine have been suffering with some strikes by Russia, where they've got some good intel and where they have hit things like air bases that need to be much better protected, goodness me, air bases should have your best air defense systems around them, in my opinion. Patriots should be defending air bases. But nonetheless, I think that Ukraine, just in general, have better missile capabilities, possibly down to the better intelligence in terms of current satellite imagery that is of better quality than the Russians. So they need to be eking out that advantage. They need to be just throwing so many cruise missiles and indigenously made missiles of their own, like the Hrim-2, like Neptune, like whatever, Tokcha-U, and then they need to be sending ATACMS and HIMARS and everything they can, just consistently have a really big their own big waves of these. And in fact, we're going to talk about that in the next video, because that appears to be one of their intentions, certainly with regard to drones and possibly with hitting Russian energy infrastructure. So we'll have a look at that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Sorry it's so late. It's life, innit? Take care. Speak soon.